Want to. All right. Welcome to this session of the 2026 Summer Leadership Series. I am recording this. It'll go into every chapter Sasana project so you can review it, share it with others who couldn't make it. If you have questions, put them in chat, and I will definitely take some time at the end to answer or further discuss anything. Uh, and I'll stop at a couple points just to make sure we're all on the same page. Um, One ground rule I'll ask for this. I'm going to ask a lot of questions of you today and how your chapter actually operates. And there's no judgment in any of them. Uh, this stuff only works if you answer honestly. And a lot of times that's going to be including silently to yourself. But we can't improve from a position that we don't admit we're in. Um, Tonight's presentation, it started in my mind after one of our social impact fellowship meetings. A speaker that we had there by the name of Kevin Clock, he was actually Archon of the Chi Delta chapter at Duke when I started working for Cyber Salon back in 2001. Started talking about heuristics. And if you don't know what a heuristic is, it's basically a mental shortcut, a simple concept that lets you hold on to a more complicated idea. Um, and when I reflected on it, I thought most of my own leadership philosophy is really built on a few heuristics I come back to over and over. And one of the biggest I'm going to share and talk with y'all about tonight. And it's basically the ideas that Jim Collins lays out in his book, Good to Great. Um, in the early 2000s, he went looking for companies that had been successful, but merely good for a long stretch. And then something happened, and they became exceptional, and they stayed there for some time. Kroger, Fannie Mae, Gillette, Abbott Laboratories. He wanted the ones that made the jump because even in a chapter, that jump is something that you can copy. Um, you're running an organization with the volunteer workforce, complete leadership turnover every year. You have a budget. A lot of you, it's a tight budget, and some cases a building. Uh, Really, the concepts of this transfer almost perfectly, and they give you an order of operations instead of just a list of tips. Right. So this graphic here kind of sums up the heuristic as a whole that we'll be talking about today. And if you remember nothing else, just remember the shape of it. It's three stages in order: disciplined people, disciplined thought, disciplined action. You start with the people build the plan, then the plan actually has to get done. That's basically the whole book. There's Fleshing it out is what makes it fun. But this order matters almost more than anything else on this slide. Um, and I'll do my best to tie this stuff back to what we actually do, whether it's bylaws, committees, meetings, recruitment, goal setting. So none of it stays theoretical. Um, Two things I see that really are why chapters struggle. Um, the first is sometimes chapters get stuck. And this doesn't always mean failing. Oftentimes it doesn't. They're stuck. Same recruitment week, same recruitment events, same philanthropy year over year, same social events around the same time. And quite frankly, if you're doing well, repeating last year feels safe. The problem is it isn't. Every year you repeat is a year you don't learn to adapt. And eventually, enough changes around you that you have no idea how to respond because you've never had to. And that's where I've seen some chapters really fail. The second thing that happens is, and it's a very real thing, chapters get overwhelmed. 12 things are wrong, and you don't know which one to touch first, so you touch none of them. Or sometimes the easiest one, which oftentimes is the least important. More than once, I've seen a chapter really struggle tell me, hey, we're updating our bylaws. Um, if you're the second, figuring out where to start is most of the work. And hopefully, I can help you with that tonight. And if not, give me a call and we can work on it together. Um, but again, there's an order: first pants, then shoes. It's obvious because it's true. And well, that's why Gary Larson wrote this cartoon. Can you put your shoes on first? Sure. It's just going to make the rest of the put it on the clothes dramatically harder. And you'll spend a lot of real energy on a problem that you completely created for yourself. That sums up a chapter without the basics in place. You run a recruitment week, but nobody knows who's in charge of what. You discipline a brother, nobody ever really gave expectations to. You plan a philanthropy event, and you have two co-chairs with no budget. So stage one is discipline people. And Colin sums it up better than I can. First who, then what? Get the right people in the right seats before you decide what to do. Most chapters do it backwards. They announce a goal or an event at chapter and hope people start volunteering. So again, let's start with here. First who, then what? So who are the right people? Uh, I, most of you have probably heard me talk about this before, but I love the story of horses and mules. And this is an oversimplification. I'm not saying all our members are animals, I promise. But that I forget all the basics of the way the old story parable goes. But three brothers each inherit a tract of land and a mule. The first one to get the work done uses a whip, beats the mule, and gets a little bit of work done, but mule gets stubborn, progress stops. The second one thinks he's got a fix. He uses a carrot, coaxes, bribes, gets a bit more work done. The mule slowly follows the carrot in front of him, but basically is spending the entire day holding a carrot. Uh, but the third gets it done quickly. And it's simple what he did. He went to town and traded the mule for a horse. Uh, and again, this is overly simplifying our members, but you all have horses. In almost any group, 10 to 20% of the roster is doing 80% of the work. And you can probably name many of them right now. Who are the people you can rely on? And then you have the mules. Uh, quite frankly, y'all on this call right now watching this, voluntarily, your horses. Um, and now I'm not saying we don't eat carrots and sticks. We do. What I'm telling you is don't spend your time and your term trying to motivate your least motivated members. You're going to burn out, and it's probably going to happen by October. Instead, gather your horses. Sit down, whether it's uh, 10, 5, 3, or 4, who you know will actually show up, and make a plan you can realistically do, and then do it. I'll use recruitment because it's one of the clearest ways to look at this. Everybody says they want the whole chapter involved. But what happens when you mandate is, and your mules show up, sit around, look at their phones, that's going to cost you potential new members. Recruit with your horses. Anybody grow up around a farm? You can't make a mule do something. But if a mule watches a field of horses working and playing, eventually it wanders over on its own. Mules aren't useless. It just takes convincing. And the convincing works by demonstration, not argument, not coercion. So think about it. Who are your other leaders? Who are your other horses in the chapter? Uh, Maybe it's a brother who took an officer job too young and seems checked out. That's just a horse that got hurt. The brother who never runs for anything, but is at every event. That might just be a horse that no one asked. Pull them aside, talk with them, one on one, not at chapter, one on one. Start planning together. That's a part of first two, then what. Like I said, y'all are I'm certain horses in your chapter. Uh, and if you think again back to that graphic I showed at the beginning, the first thing under disciplined people is level 5 leadership. Um, and it's the part that no one really talks about. Uh, what Jim Collins did is he ranked different levels of leaders, 1 through 5, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but the top level, a level 5 leader, is a unique combination: personally humble, professionally relentless. Not the loudest person in the room, not the one who needed the title. Uh, and here's a test and what to remember: the window and the mirror. When things go well, a level 5 leader points out the window. Thank you to the members who showed up. This committee did a great job planning this event. And when things go badly, they look in the mirror. I didn't prepare. I didn't follow up. This is on me. I'm president. Um, Whereas some of the lower ranked leaders do the opposite: credit in the mirror, blame out the window. And you've all probably seen this from time to time. I hope none of you ever have to work for one, but it happens then. But why this matters for you: all of you are officers. You were elected. And there's a temptation to make this term about you. What can I accomplish during my term? What can we do under my presidency? Uh, when I'm rush chair, how successful are we going to be? Organizations that go from good to great were led by people whose ambition was for the institution, not themselves. And I'm not asking you to answer this out loud, but in your mind, answer honestly. Are you holding this position for the chapter or for the resume line? And both can be true. That's okay. And I'll be the first to argue taking on a leadership position in a organization like a fraternity is building soft skills that are absolutely worthy to be put on a resume. But if that's the only reason you're doing it, the brothers can eventually tell and they will not follow you. Some chapters that have very elaborate point systems where people run for positions because they get to pick a better room or maybe they get a portion of their dues off. That can be dangerous for that reason. Um, and level 5 leaders, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but they're the people that set things up for the person after them to do better than they did. Not to look good by comparison, but to make sure whoever comes next does better. All right. We talked about the people and what goes into that. Um, so now we've identified our who. Now it's time to start talking about the what. And notice I said start talking. I'm not going to tell you your goals today. Quite frankly, I can't do that. I can help you get there. I'm happy to facilitate a discussion, but I truly don't know where your chapter actually is. And neither does anyone else that isn't a part of the chapter. You can't decide where you're going before you've honestly assessed where you're standing. And again, I'm happy to help you do this formally. We've developed a great goal setting retreat called the Commitment to Excellence, and we can help you facilitate it. We can help train your alumni to facilitate it. Um, Please let myself or your chapter services coordinator know. But you don't need something as formal. You can just start informally. Grab your exec board. Again, a lot of them are going to be horses. Get your horses together. Get a whiteboard. Put aside an hour or two on a Sunday afternoon. Starting small beats waiting for the perfect retreat that, quite frankly, can be very difficult to schedule. Either way, this first step is probably the most uncomfortable of them. And it's called confronting the brutal facts. Uh, to get better, you have to be honest about where you are. Few questions for you to answer in your head. Um, how many of you do hold a retreat? Do you set goals for your chapter? And are you setting your goals for yourself in your role? Does anybody ever sit down with an officer before the end of their time and ask what isn't working? Or do we wait until the end of our terms? Um, for a lot of chapters, I would say the answer to all three is no, we don't. Or if we hold a retreat, it's really just a social activity. And that's fine if you're not doing it yet. That's where you are today. But you have to know that's where you are. Um, Another thing to think about, every single chapter of Sayub Salon, everyone is not starting from the same place. Some chapters have more capabilities or, frankly, more privileges, a house, a large engaged alumni base, 150 years, and a historical status on the campus. And that's all right. It's not a failing to be a small, unhoused chapter on a campus that barely knows you exist. That's not your fault. Your plan has to be built for your chapter, not the one you wish you were. The most dangerous thing a chapter can do is lie to itself. Every chapter I have watched close spent a year or two telling themselves it was fine. We're going to get better next semester. Oh, it was the seniors' fault. This new exec, they're the best. The failure mode, it feels like optimism. And the way I always think about this is something called the Stockdale paradox. There was an admiral named James Stockdale who shot down during the Vietnam War and was a prisoner of war for it was about for a long time, I believe 6 or 7 years. Um, and he was interviewed by Jim Collins, and he talked about this in his autobiography as well, and asked how he got through it and asked who didn't get through it. And that second part is what stuck me. James Stockdale said it was the optimists, the ones who said, we won't be here long. We'll be out by Thanksgiving. Uh, this can't last much longer. We'll be home by Christmas. How we won't be here after New Year's. We won't be here by Easter. Basically, James Stockdale said those who were overly optimistic, they basically died of a broken heart. And his line, the way he put it, is what we call the Stockdale paradox now. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality. You have to have both halves. Faith that you will succeed, but total honesty about where you are right now. Blind optimism, that's going to get you close. And pure pessimism, well, no one's going to get motivated to help that. So we need to think about what things we need in place to get started. Um, and some of it's simple, and some of it you probably have. One of the first basics is bylaws. Um, and it's pretty simple what you need in them. Name of the chapter, the positions you have with a description of what they're supposed to do. Don't just say first Angelos, but what is the first Angelos supposed to do? Um, Meetings, when you meet, what quorum is, how you vote. Are you doing ballot? Are you doing show of hands? Are you doing a simple majority? Are you asking for 2/3? And trust me, be specific about this one because you're going to need this in the middle of an argument at some point, and you don't want to be deciding the rules during an argument. Um, think about who's eligible for membership. What are we looking for in a member, and how do we actually give out a bid? Some chapters, the entire chapter votes. Some chapters, they have a recruitment team and they make a decision. And neither is right, but what's working for you, and make sure you write it down. Um, how you have a discipline. If someone needs to be removed from a position. Um, and then one of the basics at the very end is how do you amend the bylaws themselves? Because that one I will give you some guidance on should be a chapter decision, not just the exec and, well, never an officer. Um, and there's plenty of things you don't want in there. You don't need to put dues in there, or else you're going to be amending your governing documents every year. Don't get overly specific on things that change from year to year. And please, I beg of you, no jokes. Every chapter has a funny clause someone slipped in there 20 years ago, and maybe it's an inside joke, or maybe it's something that everyone will get. Trust me, I've been in a position where it is no longer funny when we're dealing with administrators who have to review this or legal teams. Um, and here's the other thing, and it's funny, I'm leading off with bylaws, but don't focus on them. Once they're made, know them, know where they are. They're the rules, they're the playbook, but you don't have to fiddle with them constantly, hopefully. Um, there's sample bylaws in your Dropbox, in your Asana project. Yours are a mess. Start from the sample and move on. I can help you build them if you need to. But don't, if you're dealing with issues, don't spend a lot of time rewriting your bylaws. It might feel productive, and it's very often a way to just avoid confronting the real brutal facts that are in front of you. Um, I have never once seen rewriting your bylaws, fixing recruitment problems, for instance. Um, Also, make sure you have a code of conduct. Um, an actual written document that everyone gets that says what they're expected of. Again, there's a sample uh, in your Dropbox. Um, Keep it outside your bylaws so it stays adaptable. We kind of do things the same way as a national organization. We have our constitution that only can be changed by the convention, but then we have policies that can be updated by our executive board. Um, and here's why the code of conduct is actually matters more than bylaws do. The most common version of problems we see is really brothers generally don't know what's expected. They may have heard it once, but some of that floats away. And then we start getting frustrated with them because they're not doing what's expected of them. Um, what are dues and when are they due? What events are mandatory? If you have a house, what are the living requirements? Um, how what is the cleaning process of the chapter house? All of that's the chapter's responsibility to put in writing before anyone's held to it. Um, we also, in our sample, have kind of a full standards board process, and we will be talking about accountability a little bit later. Um, Another thing, make sure you have committees. Um, And for some of us, when we're smaller, when we're starting out, it might just be a chairmanship and not a committee. But the reason why we use that term chairmanship, It's because that position was always supposed to oversee a committee. But make sure there is someone ultimately responsible for some of these very important things in our chapter. One person who's responsible for recruitment. They'll have a team around them, but one person's in charge. One person in charge of your social plans. One person in charge of philanthropy. One person in charge of being the house manager. Again, a committee surrounding them to support them, but you need one person responsible. And you can think of the structure of how this works changing depending on the size of your chapter. If you're 15 members, you probably shouldn't have 9 different committees. You'll definitely get committees of one, which is one person with a title and no help. But at the same time, if you got 70 members in your chapter, you probably need quite a few committees because otherwise, a lot of members are going to have nothing to do. Think back to when we were talking about horses and mules. If you don't give a horse a job, it'll run off. And worse, idle horses sometimes get mean and destructive. Your most capable members, if they're not given something meaningful to do, they will disengage or they'll become your loudest critics. And quite frankly, that's our fault, not theirs. Now, with committees, should they be elected or appointed? Again, put it in your bylaws. It's up to your chapter. My suggestions always to appoint. Announce the roles, ask who's interested, take nominations, but then let the executive board decide. The exec's going to have to work with these people all year, and they can also help place. It's not always the best person, but the best person in the right seat who can work with others around them. Also, it'll help keep the chapter elections meeting from running for 5-6 hours because, well, I've been to some of those chapter meetings, including my time as an undergrad, and they were never fun. And by the end, we're uh, always pretty much a mess, and we weren't getting the work done we should have. Um, Also, it's perfectly appropriate for people to serve on multiple committees. I encourage, if at all possible, only have one person per chair, but people who want to be involved with other things, absolutely. If they've got the time for it, let them be on multiple committees. Um, Here's the important part for you as a leader, though. Approach people. And I'm not just talking about the new members, I'm talking about senior brothers as well. If you think a sophomore would be good for a role, a brand new member, tell them, let them know. Same with the senior, especially a senior who might be disengaging. Let them know they made a difference early on. Why wouldn't they help either serve on the committee or lead a committee during their last year? Um, and a big pet peeve of mine, so I'm just going to say it, never, ever, ever, ever allow co-chairs. One person in charge. Uh, Again, committees, having more than one person involved, absolutely, that's the whole point. But make sure it's clear who's in charge of the committee, who's in charge of getting the task done. If you have a team, make sure it's clear who's the assistant, but don't have equal responsibility. Because if two people hold the same position, something's going to go wrong at some point, and they're both going to say, I thought you were going to do that. My opinion, shared responsibility is no responsibility. All right. So another thing to think about are our meetings. We've got all different kinds. Obviously, the chapter meeting, committee meetings we just talked about, but pretty much all of you are part of an IFC or a Greek council. We have new member education meetings that are something different. We hopefully don't have to use it too much, but we have a judicial board. Most of us, after our recruitment events, we then have a recruitment meeting. And there's always that special meeting when something just goes wrong. Uh, let's start with the chapter meeting because it's the most, well, everyone has one and it's easy to have it run badly. First of all, think about attendance. What's acceptable, and how do you encourage it? Most chapters only think about the first. Here's what quorum is. Here's who we need. But punishing absence, holding people accountable, and making the meeting worth attending. It's not the same strategy, and only one works over time. Um, think about our minutes. Yes, they're a record, but it's also so brothers can review. And it only works if they get shared. Minutes nobody has the ability to see are the basically secretary's homework. Make sure they're getting out and they're accessible in a place forever. Um, and to think about our meetings, there's two parts that I want to highlight that really make Psi Upsilon different than other meetings and truly make them meaningful. The first part is Kyberian rights. Some of you in your chapters, you might call it informal. We have our standard order of proceeding for meetings. Again, in your Dropbox, I'm happy to share it with you. But usually at the end, all of our chapters, they'll do a gavel or candle pass or some other moment or way to allow brothers to share what's actually going on with them. And when I think back to my times in my chapter, I can remember many of those moments. Kyberian rights kind of comes from an interesting place, and I've been trying to do some more research on it. It comes from the Kabiri. They were a mysterious cult in the Greek world. They were associated with Hephaestus, the god of blacksmiths. And the point was they were so secretive that nobody really knows who belonged. And honestly, there's not a lot of writing about them because they were so secretive. And that's the way to think about this. What is said during Kyberian rites stays in that room. It's not something that's supposed to be talked about. It gives brothers a platform to talk about what's really going on in their life. Um, And then the second part that isn't done as much, but I love, and I do see it when I travel around, our literary exercise. Sayupsan began as a literary society. I mean, these chapter meetings back when we started, if you've ever seen the movie Dead Poets Society, honestly, that's probably looks a lot like what was happening in the 1830s and 1840s. Um, Brothers would gather to share songs, poetry, other writings. And I'm not saying that's what we need to be doing for our entire chapter meeting today. Absolutely don't, in fact. But we put that in the meeting uh, today as a remembrance for that. Just take a few minutes, 5 minutes every week. And really, I think of it as the difference between holding a meeting and holding a chapter meeting. Um, it's Meetings are a balancing act. You have to get the business done, but the meeting also has to be something worthwhile and something meaningful that the brothers don't dread. If it's an hour of an argument over budget and accountability, attendance is going to be a problem no matter what your bylaws say. But have some fun with it too, and that will make a difference. Going back to our committees and officers, this is a sample system uh, that you can use. It's not the system you have to use, but in general, you'll find something like this will work for your chapter on your campus. There's a copy of this, again, in your Dropbox. We review it at Archons Academy. Most of you probably have it in your bylaws as position descriptions. Um, Make sure it's something in writing and people understand all the roles and who they should be reporting to. Um, because, well, if you're Archon, you can't be in charge of everything. You are a student, you probably have a job. Hopefully, you have some social life outside of Psi Upsilon too. You're responsible for everything the chapter is going to be doing. Again, you're going to burn yourself out in no time. Um, but if you don't have a system like this in place, something can fall through the cracks really easy. You don't file the right report. Nobody booked your meeting room. Uh, and you have then a chapter meeting where six different people explain why it wasn't their job. And the problem is, if we don't have a good system in place, they're telling the truth because it genuinely wasn't clearly anybody's job. And well, no one was staying on top of it. And again, as Archon, you shouldn't be spending time booking chapter rooms. Um, so make sure you write down who is responsible for what. And then when something doesn't happen, you get a conversation about performance instead of an argument over who is responsible for what. It makes your positions teachable as well. The duties are written down. The next brother can learn the job. And well, we're going to talk about that a little bit more next. Um, Make sure your information for your chapter is something that's accessible. Um, you need a place for all of it. Your bylaws, your logins for your social media accounts and other accounts, past invoices, financial records, minutes, your roster and contact information, that code of conduct we talked about before. Um, and luckily today, this is easier. This almost I'm going to start removing from the slides because technology has made this so much easier. Back in my day, it was a filing cabinet in our study closet, we called it, where this stuff would sit so any brother could see it when they wanted. That you don't need that today. You got Google Drive. But every year still, I'll get a call where someone graduated and oh they had the Instagram password or they were the ones that were on the bank account and or the bylaws disappeared when the secretary left. Um, now you've got a problem. You don't have access to your social media. Maybe you need to make a new one. Worse yet, maybe you're locked out of your own bank account and you're going to need that money. um, Google Drive can fix this permanently. But whatever you use, chapter owns it, not a person. It's not an individual's account, it's the chapter's account. And make sure more than one officer has access and admin access. So that way, well, hopefully, if one person does leave with the information, there's someone else on campus that still has it. Um, and this will make it much easier also um, when it's time to hand off your position. Um, the, and honestly, this is something I'm talking to the chapter services team a lot because it's something we need to coach better. We try to have officer transition meetings via Zoom to help facilitate this, but it is so important to get a real transition from a brother who had the job before, not just a text saying good luck, an actual sit down. I mean, too often I see problems where someone has a new position and they're spending half the semester just trying to rediscover what the last officer already knew. Uh, it's a process problem, but the good thing is it's fixable. Um, on the left side of this slide is what you should have received. And on the right is what you owe the next officer. Again, some of this is simple passwords, um, how to get into your account, your dues platform. Um, and again, if this is just living on one brother's laptop or their thumb drive, it's gone the day they graduate. What was the old business we had? What didn't we get done that we still need to work on? Treasurers, where are all the invoices and the financial records from the past? Um, Make sure there's a real conversation. What would you do differently? What's the hardest part of the job? What did you not see coming? Who was there to help you? Um, Again, we've got checklists in your Dropbox. There's a section of it in our Garnet book. You don't have to invent this, but this is also something your chapter services coordinator and myself want to help you with. Um, and there's different ways you can go about it where it can be, and sometimes best, where it's a lot more than just a meeting. Um, have some sort of internship system with your new members. Make sure they get involved right away. You don't have to wait till initiation to get someone put on a committee. Um, make sure that the incoming officer and the current officer are in at least one committee meeting together. Some chapters will even do it so far where they will have a shadowing period where they elect mid-semester for the people who are going to take over next semester. I believe our Zeta chapter at Dartmouth, for instance, they're on a quarter system and they make elections the quarter before people actually take over. Um, again, think about this to be what we were talking about before, a level 5 leader. Set the next person up to be better than you. Make sure that whoever comes next is going to do a better job than you because they were better prepared than you. If you're leaving a job harder than you found it, you didn't lead, you just held the office. And one thing that I will always push back on that I hear from our chapters is we need to motivate our members. There's a better way to put it. Why, and a better question to ask, why are our members disengaging? There's the most common reasons, there's four common reasons, I would say, and really only one of them gets to motivation. One, the expectations weren't laid out at the beginning. They don't know what they were joining. Nobody told them what they were responsible for. Second thing, they don't know what to do. They'd help, but no one showed them how. Uh, three, quite frankly, they no longer see value in it. Um, and then four, and this is the contagious one, they see other brothers not doing the work, not attending. Nothing will kill attendance at events faster than watching attendance not matter. Um, and again, majority of that is an operational thing, not motivational. Um, you're not going to inspire your way out of a communications problem. Um, and this, again, same point as horses and mules. Think of it from the other direction. We spend enormous energy on carrots and sticks. We burn ourselves out, and the cause was usually something we controlled the whole time. It was a communications problem, an expectations problem, not a motivation problem. So, how do we get them back? How do we get those disengaged brothers back? Ask, talk to them, ask them questions. Why did they stop coming? What would you actually want to do around here? What you're not coming to social events anymore? What kind of social events do you want to see? What kind of philanthropy inspires you? What was your favorite part of the chapter? Why did you say yes to accepting that bid? Reignite that spark and then listen because the answers usually will lead you in a way to something that's fixable. Um, now, something else I want to make clear members of a fraternity, members of Psi Upsilon, are expected to remain a member throughout their undergraduate experience. There is no such thing as choosing to go inactive. Um, if a brother truly refuses to participate, chapter absolutely can vote to suspend them, should vote to suspend them. But that's a real process with real threshold and not a shrug and okay, you're inactive. Um, if a brother genuinely can't pay, genuinely has a situation that removes them, there actually is a way the Constitution gives chapter a way to make them inactive. But you got to remember what that actually means. They should not be at your events. You cannot have a brother who keeps the social benefits but has none of the obligations of membership because everybody watching learns that the obligations are optional. Um, Again, go accomplish something with your horses, make it visible, and you will see that as a cure for apathy. Um, if your juniors and seniors are drifting off, you are doing something wrong. 4 years sounds like a long time when you're young, but let me tell you, as someone who's still, I would think, youngish, but getting older, it goes by in a blink of an eye. It's a short amount of time. All right, we've assessed where we are, but now how do you decide where to go? And I would like to start with an equation. Capabilities plus effort equals performance. Think of an all-star athlete like LeBron James, or right now, my favorite guy in baseball, Pete Crow Armstrong. Go Cubs. Uh, their capabilities are what they're born with. The frame, the athleticism, the eyesight, the timing. Nobody can choose that. But the diet, the training, making sure they're getting the right amount of sleep, that goes into effort. It's a daily choice. And neither of them can make that person an all star. And chapters have this too. Maybe you've got a beautiful chapter house with a great location on campus. You have an incredibly large alumni base who can support financially in ways that make your life easier. Maybe you've got a university that highly supports the Greek system, or for some loves your chapter because you're doing so well and puts you on a pedestal. Maybe you're a historic chapter that people just know the name of it. It's tied to the college, and this is where we need to be honest again, because that list is never distributed evenly on your campus. You can't control capabilities, but the effort is a half you can control completely, and can make up for a real amount of missing capability. I'm not going to name them, but I watched a small unhoused chapter of three people outperform chapters with a mansion and a century of history a couple of years ago, because they were showing up while other groups were just coasting along. And again, it's not even. Some of you absolutely have to work harder for this same result. That's reality. And pretending that this isn't how it works, well, it's not kindness. It sets you up to feel like a failure for basically finishing a harder race. But here's also one of the real secrets of fraternity and this experience. You're going to get out what you put in. The brothers who work hardest at this, they're developing true skills: running a meeting, managing a budget, handling conflict, working with others. I can't stress this enough. That will give you a leg up later in life. The job you're doing this year isn't resume filler, it's practice. One of my favorite parts about Jim Collins' philosophy in his book is something he called the hedgehog concept: how an organization decides what to actually do. And I took some liberties with it to make it fit Psi Upsilon, but I would recommend you run all your ideas through these three questions. One, what can you be best at? And again, this is a reality check, not a modesty check. Chapter 10 probably isn't going to recruit 20 this fall. You never held a philanthropy on your campus before. You aren't raising $10,000 on the first one. Hitting small goals builds momentum, but missing big ones can kill it. Um, Second, what do you care deeply about? What's genuinely meaningful to brothers in your chapter? Not to me, not to the international office. And it doesn't have to be unanimous. Often it won't. Um, Practically, if it means something to some amount of people, you won't have to spend time this year motivating them because it's meaningful to them. Now, three, what's aligned to Psi Upsilon's mission? United in friendship, Psi Upsilon members aspire to moral, intellectual, and social excellence in themselves as they seek to inspire these values in society. If what you're planning can't be connected back to that sentence, it is worth asking why you're doing it or why you're focusing in on it. And then take those three ideas and put them together. Where the middle, where they focus, this overlap is where your energy should be going. This is what Jim Collins called the hedgehog concept. He had a related idea in another book about startups called the Big Hairy Audacious Goal. But think about it. Why call it a hedgehog? Because basically, hedgehogs know one great thing and they do it perfectly. They roll into a ball with their spiny backs, and that's their whole strategy. And all kinds of faster, more sophisticated predators can't get at them because they do that one thing great. The other half, think about it, it's reputation. When I said hedgehog, what did you think of? You thought of how they roll into a ball. Um, when you picture a hedgehog, quite frankly, we usually picture the defense, not what the actual animal looks like. Um, so, what is your chapter known for on campus? Quite frankly, there's already an answer. Whether you chose it or not, and probably the majority of people in your Greek community could tell you what it is. But great chapters, they pick that answer on purpose. They figure out that one thing, that hedgehog concept that they can do better than anyone else on campus. Not eight things done adequately, that one thing. And that is what they start to be known for. And when you think about what each circle actually is, this is where that equation comes back into it. What can you be best at? That's where we're talking about your capabilities. What you care deeply about, that's going to lead to effort. And your values, those give you direction. Capability and effort without direction is a busy chapter going nowhere, and I've seen that too. Capabilities plus effort, pointed the right way, that leads to our all-star chapters. Uh, One habit to build on top of it. Make sure you're celebrating your victories. Make sure you're celebrating your small achievements publicly and by name. When a brother does a great thing, call him out in front of the chapter. Not a general thank you. Say their name. It costs nothing. It can take 15 seconds, and it's the most underused tool you have as a chapter officer. People repeat behavior that gets noticed. I promise you they do. But look to find your hedgehog. It might be recruitment, it might be a philanthropy event, it might be leadership positions on campus, it might be throwing the event everybody wants to be at, having the best GPA in the Greek community. Look at what you're already doing. You may be a long way there and just not named it yet. All right. We just spent a long time talking about disciplined thought. Before that, we were talking about disciplined people. But those aren't the most important part of the plan. The most important part is action. If you get the best people in the room, build a genuinely excellent plan, then don't implement it, you land exactly the same place as a chapter that did nothing. Um, Quite frankly, you're probably worse off because now your horses knew the plan existed and watched you die, and they're ticked and wandering off and going somewhere else. I see this every year. We pulled a great commitment to excellence or goal setting retreat in August. There's butcher paper on the wall. Everyone's fired up. And then the end of the year comes around and we review what happened. And, well, no one can find that butcher paper anymore. And everyone forgot what the plan was. The difference between chapters that improve and chapters that don't is almost never the quality of the plan. It's whether anybody executed it in week 3 when it stopped being exciting. So this last stage is the things that it's 3 things: your culture, using your tools well, and momentum. At convention or Archons Academy, I get to spend a lot of time talking about culture and creating a culture of discipline in your chapter. And I was thinking about it this year at convention. I'll embarrass them a little bit because it's good. I was sitting next to the AIDA chapter at the banquet, and they won our Diamond Award. Um, and I remember talking with them afterwards how I saw that plan in place at the beginning of the year. They wanted to be known as one of the top chapters, and that's what got it to be successful. The success they had today, and also it didn't happen overnight. Quite frankly, some of the stuff was put in place a couple of years ago. Some chapters, things can take 4, 5, 6 years. Brothers who started the work graduated long before they saw it pay off. That can sometimes be the honest answer to how long this is going to take. There's no single thing you can do to build culture, and no program I can send you that's going to fix things immediately. Culture is the accumulated result of everything we've already covered. Level 5 leaders, leaders who lead by examples. Your culture mirrors what its officers are actually doing, not what they say. Accountability. When small mistakes get made, do we correct them or ignore them? Small mistakes are going to grow into larger ones. The hedgehog concept, something specific to rally around. It'll raise motivation across the whole chapter. And are we confronting the brutal facts in its operational form? Do a post-event discussion every time. What worked? What didn't? What do we do differently? Write it down. So next to your chair, they'll inherit the answer. If you have a social committee, that debrief is one of its most important responsibilities. Not planning the next event, understanding the last. And, I said we'd come back to accountability, and that's at the heart of a culture of discipline. In your mind, be honest to yourself. When a brother misses a mandatory event, they don't pay their bill, they don't clean up after an event, they don't show up to a philanthropy, what actually happens? For a lot of our chapters, the answer is nothing. That's the whole problem. Nobody wakes up one morning and decides to have a serious incident or a $12,000 receivable. You get there one ignored thing at a time. Um, and here's the cultural piece: your younger members are watching what you let slide. A sophomore's watching a senior skip chapter all year with no consequence. What they learn is, when I'm a senior, I don't have to go. That's your culture in 2 years, and nobody ever voted on it. Members have to know the expectation before you can enforce it. Again, this is your code of conduct. If it isn't written down, you're being arbitrary. You need a body to hear it, a standards board. Um, and best practice is that officers appoint the slate and the chapter ratifies it up or down. Because if the chapter elects them one by one, you get a board handpicked by the people who need policing. Um, you need the same process every time: written notice, a hearing, a vote, a written outcome. Make sure you have a path to appeal. Again, we've got this information in your Dropbox. I'm happy to walk you through it. And don't forget, advisors advise. They don't vote. This is your chapter. Think about it this way: the point of a sanction isn't to punish someone, it's to get a brother back to where they can contribute. Make sure you're proportionate, consistent, don't have failures. And the hardest part of all this, it starts with you. It starts with the leaders in the chapter. If the exec is breaking the rules, you're not going to be able to enforce it. All right. This I'm being told this slide is getting very, very dated. Uh, but I will tell you, if I went back in time to 1990, I couldn't believe that Blockbuster Video, Borders bookstores, or Tower Records could ever be stopped. They were three of the most important stores in my life. Today, well, they've been completely replaced and in most cases forgotten. Well, and except for Gen Xers like me who get emotional about it. But I think this does a good job of visualizing how the replacements arrived. None showed up fully formed. In fact, many of them started out very different. Netflix used to mail you DVDs. Some of you might still remember that. Amazon sold books and books alone. iTunes, you could buy a song for 99 cents. Each started narrow, and then they grew and grew and grew until they eclipsed who came before. And the point of that isn't what they did, it's that they changed the how. People still want to watch a movie, read a book, listen to music. That demand never moved. Think of it the same way as technology. It can complement what we do. It cannot replace it. Um, and think of it the whole organization. This fraternity is founded on friendship. And friendship is the only value in our original Constitution from January of 1834. We're going to talk about that a little bit more tomorrow night. That's still in today's. It used to be the promotion of literature and mental discipline. And some of that has been changed, and some of the values today have been added. But friendship has been there the whole time. That's a what? And it doesn't get an update. So use the tools. Google Drive is going to beat the filing cabinet. Zoom is going to be a way to connect where we don't have to drive 4 hours when it's summer and we're all over the country. Now, still meet in person when we can. Um, uh, Use GroupMe, text messaging to send messages. Again, it doesn't replace a chapter meeting, and a chapter that's migrated its decisions into a group chat. Quite frankly, it stopped being chapter and started being a text thread. But these technologies will help you become better. And I'm talking about stuff that's been around here for a while. Everything I've learned from listening to you and leaders like you talking about what they're seeing on their campuses at a given time. I still remember 2004, 2005, sitting around a meeting at Columbia University with the Lambda chapter, and they were talking about the recruits and pulling up something called Facebook profiles. And I'm like, what the heck is this? And that was the first time I learned about social media. All right, we're getting to the end here, and I apologize, I've gone a little bit long. You know me, I often do. Um, but think of it this: think flywheel effect and the doom room. Many momentum is real, and it goes both ways. The flywheel, that's when a heavy wheel takes enormous effort to move, and that first push seems to do nothing. But once you start moving it, it turns, it turns, it turns. It starts to, its own weight starts moving it forward. Chapters kind of work the same way. Beginning of the semester, that first semester of real work, it feels like nothing's happening. That might not be failure. That just might be the first push. What keeps it turning is celebrating what you accomplish. When you have a success, celebrate it out loud at the chapter. When a brother does a good job, tell everyone their name. Talk about it. Celebrate your victories, learn from your mistakes. Do both. Celebrating without learning is delusion. Learning without celebrating is exhausting, and nobody follows you for long. But beware of the doom loop. You set an unreasonable goal. We're recruiting 30 new members. We're doubling our size. You don't prepare. You miss badly. Everyone's demoralized. So Next, you're going to set another goal. We're going to raise $10,000 at this philanthropy event. You fail, people feel worse. You kind of wait. You wait for something to change around you. Um, Magic pledge class to walk in, an alumnus to save you. All things you don't and can't control. That's your chapter. Stop trying to fix everything. Gather your horses. Pick one thing you can be best at and get one win. And start turning that momentum the other way. Um, I've often been told the life cycle of a chapter is cyclical. Um, we get large, we're doing great, something goes wrong, we struggle, we get small, good leaders come in, we get large, we're doing good again. And you want to know what? The cyclical part, that's true right up to the point where a chapter gets small and closes. You get to that bottom part of the struggle and the miracle doesn't occur and you fail. Um, you know why the big ones get small? It's almost never a scandal. It's complacency. The chapter had 3, 4, 5 great years and decided they had to figure it out and didn't grow. We've created something called the Diamond Chapter Model, and I'm not going to read all of these to you. They're on our website. They're in your Dropbox. We talk about them at Archons Academy. But I would review them with your exec board. These are aspirational goals, and they're also operationally where every Psi Upsilon chapter should be. You're not going to accomplish all of it this year, and you might not ever accomplish it, all of it. That's okay. What matters is that you're always improving. A chapter moving towards this list is in good shape. Chapter that reads it and says, oh, this is impossible, is going to be in trouble. And usually they know it, they just haven't admitted it. Um, but having a GPA above the campus average, have a clear written process for recruitment, member education, risk management plans for your social event, have a transition process between officers, host a goal setting retreat at least every year, if not every term. Um, Make sure everyone, your dues collection is at 100%. And think of these. Most of these are a process, not an outcome. Grading processes, current documents, annual retreats, those are things you can decide to do this fall, regardless of your size, regardless of what's going on your campus. Start there. So go ahead, take a look at this when you get a chance, and mark, hey, yes, no, sort of. This will start you on the exercise of admitting the brutal facts where you are. All right. Thank you for sticking around. We're almost done. Um, and if you close the Zoom and nothing changes, well, we wasted an evening. Disciplined action is this part that matters. Um, so think about three things. And again, you don't have to share them, but what is the one thing, not five, one thing that you want to do that if you fixed it this semester would make the most difference? Maybe you've never had a goal setting retreat. Maybe you don't have a code of conduct. Maybe you don't have a judicial board way to enforce things. Um, when are you going to accomplish it? What date do you think you can hold that goal setting retreat? What date do you think you can draft that code of conduct and get it in front of your board? A goal without a date is a wish. Pick something realistic. Maybe it's before classes start. Maybe it's by the second chapter meeting. Maybe it's after recruitment's over, but pick a date. And then think about the horses. Who are the 2 or 3 brothers you're going to pull aside and say, hey, I need help with this? Think about who they are. Don't try to convince the whole chapter first. Get your horses moving, and trust me, the mules will wander over. But think about that one thing. And again, please bring this up with me or your chapter services coordinator when you check in with them. If you have an alumni advisor, alumni board, talk to them about it. Um, If we know what you're working on, then we can help. If your chapter is having issues, start now, today, not next semester, not once the semester starts, not once things settle down. Things will never settle down. Don't spend your time and energy on the past. It's behind us. It's not useful to you that the chapter was huge in 2014 or had a house then that was in a great location. And that a previous exec board just left you with a mess. You inherited what you inherited. The only question available to you is what you do from here. Gather your horses, talk with them honestly about what you should be doing better, and don't lose faith while you're doing it. Enlist help, talk to us, talk to your alumni. We can find you though, and if you don't know who they are, we can help you find those who will be useful. They might not even know how to get involved, and this might give them away. But set some goals with your horses. Find your hedgehog, and then go take action. Um, I love this old proverb. And again, I started this talking about heuristics. Here's another one for you. Um, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Um, all right. Thank you for spending so long with me this evening. I really, really appreciate it. If any of you have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop my share. Um, and